Okay, before we start. Next time before we start the Dharma talk, you want to go to the toilet, perfectly okay. But come back by 8:15. Not that I wait for you. You have to wait for the teacher. Huh? And then while you're going there, this is not a time for you to talk all the way into the toilet and all the way out from the toilet or anywhere. You're supposed to go there quietly, keep your mind in the present. Today maybe I'm a bit more lenient, but tomorrow maybe different. So don't talk. Just do all your things quietly. Now we start off with this Vipassana meditation, insight meditation, or sometimes they call it the practice of a four foundation of mindfulness. 四念处. Here, in this practice of insight meditation, this is very different from calm and peaceful type of meditation, or the tranquility meditation, or the samatha meditation. This Vipassana meditation can only be taught by the Buddha himself. And then from the Buddha comes to the disciple and generation after generation until right now. It has to start from a Buddha. It belongs to the realm of the Buddha. These teachings belongs to the realm of the Buddha. We cannot discover Vipassana. We cannot do that. We only can learn from our elders, learn from our teachers. So it comes from the Buddha. Therefore, we have to know how to practice it. At least we know some of its concept, some of its idea. But most importantly is that we must know how to put it in the practice. Not just only practice, but striving. To strive. To be able to push through. Here, when you come to this retreat, this is not a holiday type of meditation. This is not coming to just walk around, look at the birds, look at the trees, feel the sunshine, feel the coolness. No, that is not the type of meditation you are here. Although those things are helpful, but this is not the goal. They are helpful. All those things are helpful. They are supportive conditioning. But they are not the main goal. Therefore, in order to start this meditation, yesterday I've mentioned how to walk, how to sit. But what is important is your mind is at that present moment. With the walking, with the sitting, with the objects of walking or the objects of sitting. The objects here is like the rising and falling, or the lifting, pushing, dropping, or the right step, left step, or the sensation of the pain, or the tiredness. Those are some of the objects of the Vipassana meditation. There's no one single object. It's a various types of object. But for a beginner, or even that we are able to be advanced enough. Normally, with this meditation, we will divide them into two parts. The main primary object, and then you have the secondary object. In the walking, you have a primary object, you also have secondary object. Primary object is the lifting, pushing, dropping, where the steps area, all the sensation and the movements around the feet. But there are also secondary objects in the upper part of the body. Later part we'll talk about it, or tomorrow maybe we'll talk about it. Then in the sitting meditation, there are also primary objects and also secondary object. Primary object here, we use the rising and falling of the abdomen. The secondary objects are also important. For example, that like your itchiness, your bodily sensation, pulling, tightness of the body, pain, various types of pain that arises in the body, hearing, seeing, or thinking, feelings. Those are some of the objects of the body, secondary objects of the body. So at least in the beginner, for as long as you start in this beginning of this meditation, then it is important that we master the primary object first, as best as you can. And we try to master the primary objects because it will help to calm the mind and to develop that mindfulness. The mindfulness is the one that keep your mind in the present moment. So when you use the word mindfulness, that means your mind is in the present. Your mind is directly here in the present moment. If you start this meditation, or if you start any form of meditation, with simply you start doing it. Just because you see some people are sitting and you just sit, you're going to have a problem. Or you're going to have major problem sooner or later. Because if you start off most of the time on the wrong footing, or rightly say at the wrong mental state, this mindfulness, you must learn how to bring it up, arouse it, so that it stays for a while. Normally, in our everyday life, we don't have this mindfulness in such a strong manner. There are occasionally it comes in, but when it comes in, you also don't even know what is that is mindfulness. What we are doing in this meditation, before we talk about deep concentration, before you talk about progress, you must establish that mindfulness to be strong and continuous. At least in the beginning part, you must know how to arouse it. You must know that when it's there, when it arises, at least you must know it. If it's not, and it's not there, you also must know it. You don't have mindfulness right now. So you must able to grasp the nature of this state of mindfulness. Here, we can go through two different ways. To understand what is mindfulness, you want to go through by the books or by intellectual way. Then that is not so useful for all of you. Because you will know what is mindfulness, But then when you come to practice, you don't even know what is that. What is more important is to where we go through the way of the practice. The way of the practice is much more relevant for you. Now, to understand this mindfulness, to understand this state of mindfulness in the Pali is called sati, S-A-T-I. To understand this mindfulness, then is to able for us to put in simply, put your attention in the present moment. But then, present moment also needs to be explained. Because not every present moment is a mindful moment. When you get angry with somebody and you quarrel with somebody, present or not? You're in the present. But are you mindful? You're not mindful because you're angry. When you see the cake in front of you, so nice, mindful. Or you're not sure? Tell me, are you mindful or not mindful? When the cake is right in front of you, so nice. Still mindful. See, say. That is not mindfulness, that is greed. You desire it. That is not mindfulness. Although you're in the present. You see what I mean? Not every state of presentness is mindful. You look, for example, also maybe you watch TV, or you go to a cinema and sit down there and you watch the movie, and the movie is very exciting. It captures your attention. Although you are present, but you're not mindful. You're immersed into it. You feel it, you do it, but you're not mindful. So there's a lot of things we do in life. We are not mindful. When you're angry, you're not mindful. When you're greedy, you're not mindful. And also within our everyday life too. That when we are like just doing things, say for example, you just open a door, you just walk out, you wear a shoe. When you're out there, you do things which is very insignificant. For example, necessary but insignificant because we do it every day. Although you are present, but you are not mindful. Take for example, you brush your teeth. You look at yourself, you brush, and then up, down, and then you're not mindful. You're present, but you're not mindful. You see, the mindfulness is a very so here the thing is that you have to eliminate what is not mindfulness, because a lot of times during in the practice, you will go back to your habit. And when you go back to that, and then at least you know, hey, this is not mindfulness. So come back. So when you come back, so what is this mindfulness then? Mindfulness here, in the state of its presentness, it's a heightened alertness. It's a heightened alertness, heightened consciousness, a heightened state of mind, a heightened awareness. It's not just your normal everyday awareness that you're cooking, doing something and so on, but it's a heightened up. You do have once in a while in your everyday life when you need to be more careful that time. You need to exert more alertness, for example, at that time. You are holding, or you carrying something hot. for example. You need to have that more alertness. Somewhere perhaps the floor is more slippery. You need to be, and you know that, and you need to cross over, but then you heighten up your alertness to be aware of how you're going to walk. The Buddha gave the alertness, that type of alertness, is like a man that is carrying a bowl of oil, carrying a bowl of oil right to the brim. And yet he says, if the man were to spill the oil out, then somebody at the back of him, the big man with a big sword, and the sword is going to, the head is going to go off. And while the man is carrying it, there are beautiful ladies dancing in front of him. The Buddha gives that description. Yeah. So you don't want the head to go off. So you better be highly alert. That type is what the Buddha wants. That type of alertness. Yeah. So it's not our everyday type of alertness, everyday type of awareness, but this is heightened up type of alertness. So that present moment is quite narrow in that sense. So as I said, the present moment is not every present moment is when you are mindful. It's that mindfulness that what we want. So the present, that area of presentness is important for us to understand. Then, of course, while you're meditating right now, when you're all meditating right now, if your mind goes into the past thinking, in the past memory, then that time you're also not mindful. You go into the story after story, concept after concept, imagination after imagination, one after another. Then if you go inside there, you're not mindful. I'm sure today you have gone through it. Or if you are not in the present, then if you are in the future, that means you start planning what you want to go back, what you want to do, and this and that. That also is not good for you. That also is not mindfulness. That means the mind is already starts going into a lot of planning, starts going into a lot of imagination and stories of the past. I'm sure today you've gone through it, isn't it? At least you acknowledge it's okay. You know that you're not mindful at least. You sit down there and you go into a lot of thoughts. You start walking, then your imagination starts to run wild. So it happens in this way, then at least you know that you are not mindful. So make sure that your mind is in the present, and when you are in the present, you are highly alert. So you take, for example, in the walking meditation. You take note of your lifting, pushing, dropping, and you pay attention to it closely. At that time, is the object in the present? Is the lifting in the present, or is the lifting is being imagined out? The lifting here, the movement of the lifting is the present object. So you put your attention there. You put your attention there because it's present, and you keep that alert type of mind at that moment of lifting. When you start pushing, also the same thing. You take notice of that pushing. Then when it's dropping, you take notice of the dropping closely. So sometimes when you touch down, you may feel sometimes there's a hot, there's a cold, there's a warm. That's what we want. Mindfulness, at least you start from there. A strong mindfulness. When you start with the right step, left step, let's say, right step, left step, right step, left step. Here, you are building up. Slowly, you are building up with a relaxed body, not tense body, with a relaxed body. Then you gently walk. Right step, left step. You note your intention. Then you right step, left step, right step, left step. Then you gradually build it up. So after that, you go into the two phase: lifting, dropping, lifting, dropping, and you take notice a little bit more careful, a little bit more closer. And then when it comes into the three phase, you pay full attention to it. So in this way, we help you to gradually you build up that mindfulness. You cannot like push into it that you straight away you want to be super mindful, super strong, super slow. Don't do that. Yeah? If you do that, not only mindfulness don't come in, but the tension will come in. Your whole body will tense up in the next few days. So gentle. Take your time first. Take one phase, then do two phase, then three phase. Some people, they are yogis, they are meditators. I've seen just because that the third phase is a very clear phase, they begin to ignore the first phase, ignore the second phase. Immediately, they want to start off with that. And all these type of yogis, sooner or later, they will end up with all kinds of problems, especially like tension, cannot meditate, all tightness, the body, and so on. So don't fall into that category. So this heightened awareness, it's good because here you can check yourself. You can check your meditation whether you are actually mindful or not. This is your baseline of this meditation. Without that mindfulness, this insight, this vipassana is not going to start. Or when it drop away, then at least you know that if you don't have, then bring it back again. Come back to the lifting, pushing, dropping. Come back to the rising, falling. Come back to the sensation of the body. If you come back to the sensation of body, you take note of those things, then the mindfulness comes in. Yeah? You go into your thoughts, you go into thinking, you start planning, your mindfulness goes out. Can you understand so far? Can follow? Can do? Shooting birds, how could it be wholesome? No. As I said, there are many things are not mindful although they are in the present. You try to aim and shoot a bird or shoot a deer. Your whole mind, although the mind is concentrated, but the mind doesn't come with mindfulness. That is not mindfulness because it's come with that. It's come with the if it goes by the mind is non-compassionate heart. Yeah, without compassion this time. Actually, it comes with hate. It comes with a lot of dislike for the beings to be dead. That is not mindfulness. So we got to be careful. You quarrel with somebody, you also have to concentrate on your words. I mean, you also have to know what they're talking about. You know how to swear also. But that is not mindfulness. Sometimes we use very sarcastic words, condescending words. Although we know a lot of this vocabulary, but that is not mindfulness. Mindfulness is a wholesome mental state. A wholesome mental state in the sense that just by having this mindfulness, without you doing anything, sit there and being truly mindful, truly alert, heightenedly alert, your mind is already start producing wholesome mental actions. And there will be effects in the future. And yet at the same time, the mind is pure. Because the mindfulness is a wholesome state. Now let's say you have 1 hour of continuous and pure mindfulness. Right? Have continuous mindfulness. And you just sit there and do nothing. But your mind is heightenedly alert. Let's say you do some rising, fallings, 1 hour. And then compared to you also, do 1 hour of helping cooking for the monks or helping cleaning up, doing some charitable actions. Yeah, both also is wholesome. But I think the one you just do physically do nothing, but just being mindfully alert, that mind that produces its effect is greater than when you do all this action. You may not see it because most of the time what we see, we want to see the actions only. We do not see how the mind is being purified at that time. Most of the time we judge, oh, you are wonderful, very happy that you're able to help out, you can physically help, you are so energetic, you can able to have 1 hour of exerting your effort for the happiness and for the sake, for the compassion, whatever. But then compared to the next person, which is able to just do 1 hour of pure mindfulness, that merits that come out is much more greater compared to that one. How are you going to judge it? Well, you meditate more, you will see for yourself. If you don't meditate more, then you will say that the action is more powerful than that one. Until you have a purified mind, then you see that how this mindfulness, it generates the clarity of the mind. And we're here when we are talking mindfulness, we are talking about the baseline by mindfulness. We're not talking about the value-added type of mindfulness. Because within this mindfulness, later on in the next few days, we're going to talk about there are more things that's going to add into this mindfulness and to enhance this mindfulness even more greater, even more powerful. And it actually goes into proper insight meditation. Here, we are building up that foundation. Without this mindfulness, without this alertness of the mind, then you cannot go any more deeper. So the alertness, the heightened up awareness, it is important. Another thing that also that yogis misjudge about mindfulness is that they compare the mindfulness, or they misjudge that the mindfulness versus concentration. In the Buddhism, mindfulness is one thing, concentration is another thing, and there are two states of mind. Concentration is happen when you are like focused, like you are like that nothing that you see. A magnifying glass that you look at the light and the light is kind of focused into it, and you nothing there, you just go into like that. That type of what we call our concentration. Usually, if you are not trained in this meditation, if you are not trained into developing of mindfulness, your mind will go into concentration, and you think that that is mindfulness. And you start off with that with a wrong footing, you're not going to go any more further. Or you may think that you'll go further, but actually you're not. That one is also something like your mind goes into a very peaceful state, very nice state, very calm state, and that's about it. And yet you think that you're mindful, you think that you're going deep. No, you're not going anywhere. You think you go somewhere. You think that you're having a wonderful state of mind. But you don't realize that behind it is just craving and desire for that calmness. So one have to be careful. So when your mindfulness comes in, when you're alert on your bodily objects, alert on your steps and so on, at the same time, you know that you are not in the past, not in the future, but truly highly alert in the present moment. So if you know that, you self-check on it, then at least you know that you are doing something right. At least you know that you are doing something right. Also, and if the mind goes into, no, just now we are talking about the wholesomeness of mind. Right now, you cannot see the wholesomeness of the mind yet. Not so easy. But as you practice further on, later in the meditation, when the mind has gained some degree of ability to develop that mindfulness, or able to sustain that mindfulness, then that time, actually you can see the wholesomeness of the mind. That time, for example, when the desire comes in, mindfulness comes in, it knows the desire, it pushes out the desire. Without trying to suppressing it, but just by knowing it, the desire disappears. The anger comes in, let's say, you're angry, your state of mind. Just by awareness of that desire, alert of that anger, that anger disappears. That sleepiness of yours today, you're so drowsy, sitting. Mindfulness, when it's strong, you're just aware of the sleepiness gone. Can you do that now? You cannot, of course. You sleep all the way through until the bell rings. Then you wake up. We don't see the effect of that mindfulness yet. We don't see the effect of mindfulness yet. When the mindfulness hasn't gone through a somewhat continuous and somewhat strong. In the beginning part, the mindfulness is neither here nor there. That is where we need to keep arousing it, keep pushing it. So, don't worry about its wholesomeness yet. What is important is that you check yourself whether you're mindful in this present or not. The next thing about that mindfulness also, in the text, it's mentioned that mindfulness is not superficial. Mindfulness is not superficial. They use the figurative sense as if like like a wine cork. You take out from the head of the wine the cork, and then you put it on the water. The cork is not going to go going to sink. It's going to float, right? So it says that according to the text, the Buddhist text is that our superficial mind, our everyday mind, is like that cork that's floating on the water. Mindfulness is like a rock that when it touch, it sinks down. It touched the bottom. Other words, what is important here while we are doing meditation is that your mind can able to touch the object. You put your mind and touched onto that object. So therefore it's not like superficial. Yeah. Talk about superficial. For example, there are meditators. And then you may come from different parts of different form of meditation. Then you go from different types of meditation. And one of the things that normally meditators do it superficially is on their walking meditation. Their walking meditation is just right step, left step, right step, left step, right step, left step, and they go around the temple, into the dining hall, here and there. There's no noticing of what is going on. They feel, I'm here, just walking, just walking, just walking. Walking to the toilet, come back, walking here, walking there, just walking everywhere, just be present. Mindful. That is not enough. Uh, uh, well, not to say they are totally zero mindfulness, but it's more like you are enjoying the time here. You're not really pushing it through mentally, at least. You're just relaxing, nice. And sooner or later, with this type of mentality that you have, you're going to give up on walking meditation. You give up on walking meditation, you do only sitting. Walking meditation is the time for you to chit-chat. Walking meditation time is for you to sit down and make a cup of tea or coffee and enjoy the weather. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah. So that is called superficial. Yeah. If you want to develop some degree of meditation, stay on your lane. Keep there. Yeah. Then at least you start practicing. You keep your mind there. And if you start paying attention to it more closely, to your object, then the right form of mindfulness will start to arise. The stronger type of mindfulness will start to arise. So it is like going into the object. Some people, for example, when it comes into the sitting meditation, take for example the pain. And the pain comes in, they don't want to pay attention to the pain, so painful, ouch. They keep the mind far, far away. Don't want to see it, don't want to look at it. And when you don't look at it, the pain is not so painful. Yeah. When you start paying attention to it, then you touch it. Ouch, painful. But you have to note it. You have to pay attention to it, because when you notice the pain will start to show its character to you. But you have to be able to withstand it. So, you do your walking meditation right, you do your walking meditation properly, then you'll find that you can able to notice the pain somewhat clearer, somewhat slightly longer than before. Yeah? Or the walking meditation will help. So make sure that you have that mindfulness, that alertness, that more closely attending to the object type of clarity or awareness, not just on a superficial basis. So too, like when we are doing all other activities which is non-walking and non-sitting. Take for example when you're in a dining hall, when you're eating. I mean, this talk is not the first time I talk. I think a number of you also have gone meditation with me. Uh, uh, but a lot of times we forget to be mindful because we are so habitual in eating fast. And then after that we go to do something, we want to quickly do something. No, the eating is a meditation itself. Some places I got to know you have to sit there and eat for 1 hour, everyone. You slowly eat. You slowly open your mouth. You take one scoop, it will take you 5 minutes and go down and biting and chewing. So you got to notice. Oh, you're biting. You don't have to go too slow. You don't have to go too fast also. Be there. Pay attention to it. Biting. Then put some labeling there. Biting, chewing, swallowing. You know what is going on. The mind is present. You want to scoop this one, slowly take it up and slowly put it in the mouth, slowly put down the hands and slowly bite, chew. Everything done with alertness of the mind. Yeah? You want to get up from the stool of the chair or the chair or the stool or your cushion here. Then before you get up, make an intention to get up. Intention to get up. Then only be mindful getting up. You don't have to do something somewhat not natural. We do all things naturally, but somewhat slow down only. We slow down our activity, we slow down our eating, we slow down our walking, we slow down on everything. Keep it relaxed, keep it gentle. Then it helps the mindful. It will help, or it will have a good condition for that alertness to come in. So make the effort. So while you open the door, your handle, you want to open the door, you want to close the door. Be mindful, be alert, be there. And just feel the handle, whether it's warm or cold, just slowly push it through. Just be mindful. If you need to exert some energy, be aware of it, that you are exerting the energy. We are doing the same thing like what you are doing every day. But as I said, put in the effort to be mindful, to be alert, to be present. Now in this mindfulness, actually this mindfulness thing, you're supposed to do it at home already. Some of you are not the first time coming with me. But while we're at home, a lot of times we forget about mindfulness. We forget to be present what we are doing. Then only when we come into the retreat, then we want to stir it up. Then if you can able to do it at home, some degree of mindfulness throughout at least some parts of the day or some activities here and there, a little bit here and there, you gather it from day to day, up to another day. By the time you come to the next retreat, right? For example, like right now, your mind have that habitual tendency to be mindful, to be alert. When I go for walks, Especially when I go for walks in the mountain, I'm alone, At that time, I try to be as mindful as I can. But the mindfulness not necessarily only in the body, but the mindfulness also in the hearing, in the seeing, smelling, and so on. Yeah. I don't let the mind goes into a lot of thinking. Thinking here, planning, even planning for a Dhamma talk, planning this and that or retreat. I put them all aside and just keep the mind on the walking. Whether there's rocks here, whether there's a hole there, whether it's you have to jump over, we have to go faster, you go slower, doesn't matter as long as you keep your mind there. I find it very refreshing. And not only it helps it not only helps in physically, but also it helps mentally. That's why I enjoy to go for walks. Sometimes I go for walks for hours. I go it quietly. Even I see snakes also. A few times I see the cobra, whoosh, and then it goes up, and then with the hood come out. I don't feel fear. And once in a while, here also you all be careful about snakes. A few times I walk around, there are they have copperhead. Copperhead is supposed to be a venomous snake. So there's no fear. But I don't go near. Doesn't mean fear. I go and touch it, hello with it. No, just keep it. You stay your side, I stay my side. I just walk around you. So a lot of times we see this thing. But at that moment of time, the mind has already exercised some degree of steadiness, mindfulness there. Fully alert without that fear. You stay on your own world, I stay my world. We just so happen to crisscross each other, so let you pass. As you pass, you go on, just carry on. By the few steps later, I already forgotten about the snakes. We use this. I use this as a training to be mindful. One of the trainings, one of the things that I use to be mindful. So I'm sure that if you're able to do this type of mindfulness in your everyday life, something here and there, it'll be very helpful when you come to the next retreat. Because the next come in the retreat, when the mindfulness is somewhat there, you settle onto the retreat much faster, much clearer, and you can able to sustain for a longer period of time, that mindfulness. And you need that in order for you to progress. There's also another word for mindfulness. They call it face to face with an object. Face to face with an object. You see, when mindfulness comes in, or they use the word confronting an object. When you do meditation, vipassana meditation, or even samatha meditation, for example, like metta, for example, or in-breath, out-breath, for example, you need to go close to the object. For example, like another word for using the word without floating above or without just on superficial, but drop down to the object. Another way of looking at it, the text uses the word face to face onto the object. We need to go close to the object. Everyday life, in our everyday life, our mind is far from the object. And a lot of times we are inside our thoughts, our thinking, our planning, and we overthink a lot of things. We forget to be with the body. We forget to be at the moment. So, this mindfulness here, when there is some degree of mindfulness arises in the mind, you see that the mind is go closer to the object. And for those who have been done this insight meditation before, this vipassana, you find that at times the objects becomes clearer to you. Rising and falling becomes much more clearer. Sensation of the pain becomes clearer, or the itchiness becomes clearer. But the moment you let go of that object, the moment you stop the meditation, everything becomes just, it's not that painful after all, It's not that itchy after all. But when you pay attention to it, wow, it's strong. In other words, the mind is going close to the object. We need that mindfulness to go close to the object so that in the next few days, and we'll talk about, there are other mental factors will start to look into it more thoroughly. Thoroughly. Thorough. Not thorough. Here, yeah, before we go on, here, we in Malaysia, we use a lot of British English. Here, you use American English. So sometimes my words are a little bit different. Thorough. So here, thorough. But I have to go back, I have to rechange everything again now, because most of we use British English. Yeah. I try to use the word I cannot rather than I can't, because we don't use those words. We use the word I can't do that. I cannot do that, But here the words, I'm not so used to it. But doesn't matter as long as you understand me. This is not an English language class. Sometimes my tenses and my it's all mixed up. Doesn't matter. This is not a Toastmaster. You don't start counting my in Toastmaster they calculate how many R's you have. So this is not a Toastmaster. So make sure you don't judge on my language. You judge on my content. Anyway, so mindfulness here is that it goes close to the object, and we want that because in the next coming days, closeness to the object become very important, as you will see. You notice that the lifting, pushing, dropping. You notice it more carefully. The hardness, the softness. That means you put your attention close to the object. Then only you can notice something. If you don't put close to the object, you don't notice it. You don't notice anything. In order for it to help you to pay close attention to it, that's where the labeling comes in. You label it, okay, stepping down, stepping, and then you notice stepping, and then you feel lifting, and then you notice it. The labeling, the mental labeling helps you to go close to the object. So it's helpful. There's one thing before we go off, before we leave, before we end the talk. There's one thing about mindfulness that we have to, we also needs to know, we also, all of us need to know, is that mindfulness will only arise when your object is clear to you. The mindfulness will only arise when the object is clear to you or predominant to you. The mindfulness will not arise if your meditation object is very vague or very not neither here nor there. So What I'm trying to say is this. When you want to pay attention to an object, for example, let's say the sitting aspect of it, you notice the rising and falling. If the rising and falling is clear to you, then you pay attention to it. Rising, falling, rising, falling. You put your palms there. Rising, falling, rising, falling. But after a while, the rising and falling is somewhat there, not there. And that means it's become fake to you. So when it's fake, that means you remove or you change or you bring your attention to another object which is clear to you. Perhaps this time the touching of your hands are clear to you. It can be warm. Then you notice it. Warm, 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 warm. Hot, 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 hot. Or sweaty, 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 sweaty. As long as you don't move it. Because that sweatiness, that warmness is an object for the mindfulness to arise. If only you pay attention to it. Only if you put your mind there. Only if you face to face with it. So you feel a bit uncomfortable. Don't adjust it. Pay attention to it because that uncomfortableness becomes a prominent object at that moment of time. You notice, say you notice this thing, and then after that, for example, the pain comes in. The pain is more prominent than the warmness, for example. Then what you should do? You pay attention to the pain. You notice the pain. You go close to the pain. See the nature of the pain, see how it grows, how it becomes stronger, and so on. That is what it means by going from one object to another object, which is clear and prominent. Usually, in the beginning part of the practice, comparatively sitting objects are not that clear. Walking objects are clearer. Walking objects are clearer in the sense that because you're physically moving. When you're physically moving, then this time you can able to feel the sensation much more better. You feel the sensation better, and because of that mindfulness you develop from that walking, you hold it like a bowl of oil, then bring it to your sitting meditation. And when you bring it to the sitting meditation, it will help you to notice the objects rising, falling, sensation clearer than before. So make sure that you keep on looking for something that is clear to you. Sometimes when you do the lifting, pushing, dropping, and then perhaps it's not so clear anymore at this moment of time. Maybe your mind starts to run a little bit, or you're not so mindful. Then go back to two phase. Perhaps go back to the one phase. You can do that. Start all over again. Right step, left step, right step, left step. Then slowly and slowly the mind becomes clearer to notice what is going on. Then become very helpful. So this is on a little bit on mindfulness. Tomorrow we're going to look into a little bit more on more continuous type of mindfulness. Not just only mindfulness, but a continuity of that mindfulness. How to bring that mindfulness into more continuous. And that it will help you to further the progress of this meditation. Okay? So we stop here for tonight.